Did I know something was wrong the moment I woke up that Easter morning? Looking back, I think I did, even if I didn't know exactly what it was that had made my eyes snap open. There was no reason for me to be awake. I remember thinking. The sun had barely come up, filling the house with the hushed golden light of dawn. I tiptoed down the hallway, hoping to avoid waking up my parents and breaking the spell. There was a tension in the air, a kind of anticipation that I couldn't explain, not at first. I had already made my way down the stairs when I remembered. It was Easter Sunday. The Easter Bunny was coming. I was 7 years old that fateful April morning, and every Easter I could remember so far had featured a hunt for colorful, candy-filled eggs. And now that I'd woken up early, I might even get to see the Easter Bunny for myself. I was still wondering if I'd get in trouble for peeking out the window when I heard a knock at the door. Even though my heart was pounding with excitement, the sudden sound still scared me, and I felt the shadow of a doubt cross my mind before I unlocked the door. Who would visit our house at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning? Had something bad happened? When I pulled on the heavy brass handle, however, I let out a sigh of relief. Everything was fine. It was just the Easter Bunny. The man-sized, floppy-eared, fur-covered figure stood on the porch holding a wicker basket. Wow, I muttered to myself. Then, are you for real? Some of the kids in class say you don't even exist, you know. The Easter Bunny didn't respond. As if to confirm my suspicions, I reached out and stroked its fur. It felt sort of fake, like the mascots at Chuck E. Cheese's. The tall figure didn't budge, didn't react to my touch at all. It just stared down at me with those enormous, unblinking plastic eyes. Then it gestured to the basket. A scroll-like note lay on the minty plastic grass, tied with a bright yellow ribbon. A grin spread across my face as I unraveled it and read the fancy handwritten letters it contained. You've been chosen for a special Easter egg hunt. Me? I pointed to my chest, eyes wide. The Easter Bunny nodded. Well, I frowned. I better ask my parents. Bang! The tall, furry figure had slammed shut the front door to my house with a single, powerful paw. I gulped. I didn't want to make the Easter Bunny angry, especially now that I realized just how big it was. The foggy streets were silent. Not even a bird sang. It was like the whole world was empty, except for me and the Easter Bunny. I tried to swallow again, but my throat was dry. I looked up at the black windows of my parents' bedroom. If I woke them now, I'd get in trouble for sneaking downstairs, for being outside, for spying on the Easter Bunny. Who could even guess how long I'd be grounded for? Meanwhile, if I just went on one quick Easter egg hunt, I could be back before they even knew I was gone. Besides, I'd been chosen. Who knew what special things the Easter Bunny had in store for me? I shivered. The morning mist was cold, and there was something unnerving about the way the Easter Bunny kept staring at me. Okay, I shrugged. Let's go. And the Easter Bunny led me away across the dewy grass. The fog was so thick I could barely see anything apart. From the sea of bright green around us and the Easter Bunny's tail bobbing ahead of me like a will-o'-the-wisp. I had a feeling I knew where we were. However, the enormous lawn of the nursing home behind my parents' house. I even thought I could see its lights on the hill to the right and make out the dark shapes of pine trees beyond that. Then, suddenly, the Easter Bunny stopped and set down the basket. It still hadn't spoken a word. Instead, it pointed at the ground straight ahead. It was time for me to start searching. The fog had lifted a bit, and the dew felt good on my bare feet. But it was kind of unnerving how the Easter Bunny kept following so close behind me, like a silent giant. When I found the first egg, however, my doubts vanished. It was pink plastic, just like I was used to, and inside was a shiny golden ring. My jaw dropped at the sight of how it glittered in the early morning light. Is this real gold? I gasped. The Easter Bunny nodded. Is it for me? The big furry figure nodded again. I slipped the heavy golden thing around my finger, careful not to let it fall, and went in search of the next egg. I couldn't help but get distracted by the ring as I walked. The more I looked at it, the more something about it seemed familiar. The sight of a blue plastic egg badly hidden beside a stream up ahead chased the thought out of my mind. If the last egg had contained a golden ring, what might be inside of this one? My yelp of joy died in my throat when I cracked it open. The blue egg only held a dog biscuit, the exact same brand that I usually gave to the family golden retriever, Rolf. And speaking of Rolf, I hadn't seen or heard him at all when I woke up, even though he usually barked his head off at every little sound. Okay? I forced myself to smile up at the Easter Bunny, the same smile I reserved for my aunt when she gave me clothes that smelled like mothballs for Christmas. With the gold ring still heavy on my small hand, I slipped the treat into my pocket and went looking for more eggs. The third one I found was bigger than the other two. It was bright yellow with blue dots, almost impossible to miss, and it was located on the edge of the pine forest. In fact, all of the eggs the Easter Bunny had left for me seemed to be leading me in that direction, away from the lights of my neighborhood and toward the darkness of the woods. I thought of the breadcrumb trail from Hansel and Gretel, remembered the horrible old witch in her candy cabin, and shuddered. My parents had told me to never go into the woods alone, but I was with the Easter Bunny, so it had to be all right. And anyway, I wanted to find out what was inside that big egg. This time, I recognized the contents right away. These are my father's glasses, I muttered. What are they doing here? Of course, the Easter Bunny didn't answer. I couldn't help but imagine the huge, furry figure in front of me climbing onto the roof of my house, silently sliding open my parents' bedroom window, sneaking inside, and grabbing the glasses from my father's bedside table. But why would the Easter Bunny do such a thing? My father was as blind as a bat without the wireframe glasses that I was currently holding in my hands. A sense of foreboding crept into my bones. Another egg, a purple one this time, sparkled beside a mossy stone just inside the forest, but I realized I didn't want to go after it. The sun was higher in the sky now. The mist was almost gone. I could see the nursing home clearly up on the hill and hear the sounds of birds and car tires from the comforting confines of my neighborhood. That world, the world of family breakfasts and the bright yellow school buses, the world without the Easter Bunny, suddenly felt very far away. I don't think I want to play anymore, I muttered in a small voice. The Easter Bunny's ears flopped as it bent its head to the side, a gesture that was comical and hostile at the same time. There was nowhere to hide from the black centers of its unblinking plastic eyes. Suddenly, and with surprising violence, it stabbed its paw toward the heart of the forest. It shuffled its furry feet toward me menacingly, urging me on toward the woods. I bit my lip and started walking toward the purple egg. The Easter Bunny's furry gray feet crunched over the pine needles. It was following closer and closer behind me. Full of misgivings, I stooped to open the purple egg. When I did, something round, slick, and crimson slid into my hand. I dropped it with a yelp of horror. It was a real human finger. There was something about it I recognized too, my mother's nail polish. Suddenly, I realized where the gold ring had come from. I was wearing my parents' wedding band. I gasped and took a step backward. The woods felt vast and dark indeed. What's going on? I felt tears welling up in the corner of my eyes. I want to go home. I want to see my mom and dad. The Easter Bunny's paw shot down and grabbed my wrist. It was dragging me deeper into the forest. I yelled and squirmed, but another mitt of fake fur clamped down over my mouth. It didn't smell like springtime or candy. Its odor was sour, rotten, and wrong. Up ahead was another egg, a bright orange one laying among some dead pine branches. I don't wanna, I mumbled through the fur, but the Easter Bunny forced my hand down onto the cheap plastic. Part of me was afraid to open it. The other part was filled with morbid curiosity, a sick need to know what was inside. Something round and whitish red rolled out with a splat. Pine needles stuck to its white, veiny surface, and a foul white liquid oozed from where it had been ruptured. My father's bright blue eyes stared up at me from the forest floor. Why are you doing this? I screamed at the Easter Bunny. This, deep in the woods, it was so dark that the morning still felt like night. Even so, I could make out other colorful shapes glimmering in the gloom. More eggs. I had no desire to know what awful secrets they contained. The Easter Bunny tugged insistently on my wrist. It was so big, so strong, how could I ever get away from it? Or was I going to spend what was left of my life searching these shadowy woods for those terrible plastic eggs? I forced myself to start walking toward the nearest egg. There was no sound but the snap of sticks beneath my feet and the wheezing, excited breaths of the giant, furry thing beside me. Now that I wasn't struggling against it, the Easter Bunny had loosened its grip somewhat. Furthermore, I realized that its huge paw wasn't very bendable. It couldn't close around my scrawny 7-year-old wrist quite the same way that a human hand could. That gave me an idea. The Easter Bunny was big. The Easter Bunny was strong. The Easter Bunny was terrifying. But was it fast? My arm was slick with sweat, and when I ripped it out from the Easter Bunny's grip, the furry monstrosity's gasp of surprise and anger seemed to echo through the trees. I ran. I ran until my lungs burned, dodging through narrow gaps between the trees and slipping through the undergrowth where I hoped my nightmarish pursuer couldn't follow. There was no turning back now. I didn't want to think what it would do to me if it got a hold of me again. I might even end up inside a few of those colorful plastic eggs. The heavy tump-tump of its footfalls behind me reverberated against the forest floor. It was catching up. The bright lawn beyond the trees grew closer and closer with every step. Then suddenly I was through, bursting out into dewy grass and sunlight, but not before I felt a furry paw graze the back of my neck. I didn't stop running until I was on the patio of the nursing home at the edge of the neighborhood. The old folks in their wicker chairs observed me curiously as I stared down at the edge of the forest, where I could barely make out a man-sized shape with floppy bunny ears watching me from within the shadow of the trees. The nurse who I told my story to probably didn't believe or understand a word of it, but he could tell from my thorn-ripped clothing and dirty, tear-stained face that something was very wrong. The police met me on the nursing home porch, and when I showed them the way back to my house, it was the two officers, not me, who found the grisly scene waiting inside. According to the medical examiner, the rest of my family had already been dead for hours when I woke up that Sunday morning. At first, the officers struggled not to laugh when I cried that the Easter Bunny got them. Of course, that was before people started opening those strange plastic eggs that had appeared in the woods. Now, 13 years later, the case is still unsolved. I went to live with my aunt several states away, and she worked hard to protect me from the grim memory of what had happened. To this day, I still don't know what I met on my front porch on that foggy Easter morning. A serial killer in a fursuit? Some kind of supernatural being? I have no idea. All I know is the warning that I plan to pass on to my own children. If the Easter Bunny invites you on an egg hunt, don't go.